In our previous episode, we see our boy head home first and marry Snowy before setting off with Far toward the Yamu sector. On the way, he hit a few small breakthroughs, nothing dramatic but enough to nudge his strength up. Once they arrived, he registered his citizenship and waited around for Far. That's when a girl showed up, pointing straight at him and claiming he reeked of Bobby. Lu Sheng was clueless and asked her what she meant by Bobby. Vera, leaning casually on the table, remarked that of course he wouldn't know yet. With a serious tone, she explained Bobby was her noble-blooded crystal eater, a pet she'd raised for over a decade. Lu Sheng thought about it, and then asked if she was talking about a small, round creature with many legs. Vera's eyes lit up, nodding excitedly, eager to know where Bobby had gone. That's when our boy gulped, then his stomach growled at the worst moment. He hesitated, then pointed vaguely, explaining that the little thing had landed on his hand. He thought it was a bug, so he flicked it off, no clue where it flew after. Guiltily avoiding Vera's eyes, he silently hoped she'd leave, but Vera suddenly wrapped her arms around his head, pressing him tight to her chest, earnestly thanking him. Meanwhile, he began to wonder if she'd caught on and was trying to smother him to death. He pushed her aside and asked what was going on. Vera calmly explained she just wanted to show her gratitude, then formally introduced herself. Lu Sheng, shaking his head, wondered if people here were always this forward. Either way, he extended his hand and introduced himself. Before he knew it, Vera dashed off, cheerfully promising to treat him to a meal once she found Bobby. He let out a sigh, muttering an apology she'd never hear. After all, Vera had no idea her beloved Bobby was already in our boy's stomach, working overtime to help him generate 2 more immortal cells. Apparently, crystal eaters were absurdly tough, nearly impossible to crack without 11th level strength. He scratched his head, feeling awkward, because honestly it would be pretty messed up if he straight up tells the girl he just ate her pet. Just then, a maid approached. Curious, Lu Sheng asked about Vera's background, and the maid calmly declared she was the only daughter of Count Sith, which caught him off guard because even Far was just a baron, 2 full levels below her father. Stroking his chin, Lu Sheng remarked that it was no wonder Vera waltzed through the city hall like it was her private garden. He silently thanked his luck for keeping quiet earlier. Who knew how expensive that bug had been, adding that whatever Far had given him probably wouldn't have covered the damages. Just then, Far showed up, confirming the paperwork was all set, saying it was time to go. As they left the building, still curious, he asked if Far knew what a crystal eater was. Far was a bit surprised Lu Sheng even heard about it, so he explained they were fascinating creatures, gentle by nature, hitting 10th or even 11th level when fully grown. He further explains that nobles loved gifting them to their daughters, or female companions, making them a trendy must-have among socialite circles. He then casually asked Far about the price, and Far explained that even the cheapest crystal eaters would cost hundreds of millions of black crystal coins, while rare ones could be worth several life planets combined. Far, curious, asked why he was bringing this up. Lu Sheng brushed it off, acting cool, remarking he just overheard someone mention it and got interested. But inside, he was panicking and wondered why the hell did that little thing so expensive. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, he silently remarked that those 2 bites earlier had just burned through tons of black crystal coins, and honestly, he couldn't wrap his head around these prices. Meanwhile, back at the White Mist Sector's Enforcement Bureau, the director sat at his desk, skimming a report. The document barely touched on how the Star Pirate was taken down, rather just a few vague lines. Schiller, standing by, explained that the Yamu sector only sent that much, and though he kept pressing for everything, they kept stalling, promising they'd send the rest later. The old man's years of experience instantly raised alarms. He firmly asserted that no sector would hand over credit for a takedown without some scheme behind it. With a sharp tone, he ordered Schiller to contact Yamu sector right now and tell them he wanted the full report now. Schiller, now a little flustered, quickly dialed Far. The signal connected, and Far greeted Schiller with a cheerful smile, looking like he was in a great mood. But when the old man spoke up, noting how Far seemed quite happy, Far instantly straightened, respectfully addressing him as Chief Executor Lenin. Schiller explained they were compiling reports and needed the missing details. Far paused, then smiled faintly and said the files would be sent right away before cutting the connection. Schiller finds the behavior odd, and even he finally senses something is off. Chief Lenin slammed his hand on the table, furiously scolding Schiller for being stupid, declaring that the Yamu folks were notorious schemers and had clearly been hiding something. He berated Schiller for not going over there himself, certain they'd already stumbled into serious trouble. Schiller, now genuinely rattled, quickly apologized but cursed Far under his breath. Moments later, the files came through. Impatiently, the chief ordered Schiller to open them. Schiller froze as the report popped up. It wasn't just detailed, it laid out everything. Each member's profile, the entire battle breakdown, even video footage. His eyes widened as he watched. He first saw our boy kill Eiji, then noticed the other two were also crushed with his psychic power. What shocked Schiller most was seeing Lu Sheng kill the leader with just one punch. But what puzzled him even more was that, despite clearly having 11th level strength, Lu Sheng's combat style was quite primitive. Even worse, Lu Sheng had tanked direct attacks from a battleship, still relying on martial avatar instead of more advanced combat methods. Schiller became more shocked, and he began to wonder just who this guy was. Schiller fought to keep his shock and confusion in check as he clicked on the final video. The old man noticed Far was in the video, so he ordered him to skip ahead. What they saw next made them both freeze. It was footage of Far clashing with Lu Sheng. The old man shot up from his chair, astonished, blurting out that this was beyond anything he'd imagined. But just as quickly, he collapsed back into his seat, rubbing his forehead, muttering that he finally understood our boy wasn't an executor, and he doubted the guy was even from this star sector. Before he could finish his thought, Schiller spotted a new file coming in. The old man simply told him to open it. As it loaded, he quietly remarked that if his hunch was right, they were about to get confirmation. The file pulled up Lu Sheng's full profile. A native of a level 1 resource planet, 9th level in strength, and currently a level 3 citizen of Yamu sector. But then came Far's personal notes saying Lu Sheng's combat ability rivaled an 11th level. But his extraordinary lifeform grade remains unknown, which he estimated to have a potential rating of SSS. The old man trembled slightly, despair creeping into his voice as he whispered that his guess had been spot on. Lu Sheng really was a native from a low-level planet. Schiller, reading the whole report, was so stunned he could barely form words. The old man slammed his fist on the table, roaring at Schiller for being a fool. He asserted that Schiller had been blinded by the credit he was handed and never bothered to check deeper. Practically shouting, he declared Far's delay in sending reports, plus the fact that he'd taken 2 agents away, had all been stalling tactics. They'd whisked Lu Sheng off to Yamu before anyone here caught on. When the old man finally realized Earth was under their sector's control, his rage boiled over. Without warning, he hurled his cup right at Schiller's head, snarling that this was the mess he'd made. Schiller collapsed to his knees, shaking as he begged for forgiveness. The old man pressed on, demanding if Schiller even understood what they'd lost. A 9th level prodigy who could take on 11th level, the kind of prodigy that only showed up once in tens of thousands of years, now slipped right under their noses. The old man's veins bulged, his fury was barely restrained, his hands twitching as if ready to strangle Schiller then and there. Schiller dropped his forehead to the floor, pleading for one more chance, but the old man sighed deeply, turned away, and coldly remarked that it was too late. Schiller was no longer fit for his position, and tells him to take a nice, long vacation instead. Schiller opened his mouth to speak, but in the end, could only lower his head and quietly accept. Meanwhile, over at Yamu Luxury Hotel, though I have no idea why such an advanced place still uses stone and marble anyway, Far tells our boy to rest up for a few days, and casually comments that Lu Sheng's luck was good because the Academy's new round of talent tests was coming up, and he'd take him to assess his extraordinary lifeform grade. Lu Sheng could sense Far's good mood, and when he pointed it out, Far just laughed, admitting that, indeed, a few things had gone his way lately. As for Lu Sheng's rewards, he assured him they'd be very generous. With a wave, Far left, promising to pick him up later. Only once he turned around did Far's grin even widen. As his communicator chimed, he picked up. It was his superior, cheerfully praising his excellent work and summoning him to the office. Hanging up, Far began throwing his arms up in excitement, remarking to himself what a fantastic day it was. Back in the bustling hotel lobby, Lu Sheng watched all sorts of people around. Suddenly, a voice called out, letting him know his room was ready. Turning, he saw a girl approaching, one with fluffy ears and a tail swishing playfully behind her. But what really caught his eye wasn't the tail. It was her rather generous personality. The fluffy tail flicked in front of him, and to his surprise, our boy felt an odd urge to grab it. Apparently, furry things were his unexpected weakness. The girl seemed to notice his stare, turning with a shy smile, softly explaining that their hotel also offered special services, making sure to emphasize the word special just a little too much. Lu Sheng suddenly remembered he did have one request, and the girl instantly perked up, her fluffy tail wagging excitedly as she leaned in, asking what is it. But Lu Sheng casually pushed her back, explaining he just wanted to withdraw some energy crystals. The girl froze for a second, then quickly recovered, asking how much. Lu Sheng calmly answered 5 million, though in his head he was already planning to stash half for training. The girl beamed, saying that was no problem, then asked if there was anything else he needed. But Lu Sheng simply waved her off with a nope, then shut the door and left her standing outside. Once inside, he looked around, noting the room was actually pretty decent. He pulled out a few identity cards taken from the Star Pirates, but quickly realized they were useless because he couldn't actually access anything. Still, he had plenty of loot on hand. Deciding it wasn't worth overthinking, he figured he'd just sell off everything he didn't need and stock up on essentials. With that, he decided to head out, thinking it was the perfect chance to explore the area, and more importantly, get a handle on the local prices.